Sometimes you end up writing route code that looks something like this. However, we run into a problem here where body can be of any type, but it needs to be a specific type. We could try to rectify this with an ad hoc function that would look something like this. And if you're not familiar with this argument is type syntax in the return type, it's essentially an alias for a Boolean where we're telling Typescript to interpret true to mean that we have validated that that argument is the provided type. This works, but doing this for every single route and every single type is inelegant and messy. We can do better. Let's go to another file and create a general validation scheme. We're going to define our first type for a general validator of any kind, and we're going to put it in a namespace just for easy use later. If you're unfamiliar with this syntax, just think of T as a type parameter for anything. It's as if validator is a function at the type level as well. We can then go ahead and write validators for strings, booleans, numbers, and symbols, all of the primitive types. Now I'd like to keep going with some helper types and functions for these validators. The parse function will take in an object and throw an error if it doesn't pass the validator, and simply return it as the type of the validator if it does. The infer type is a bit more complicated. If you're not familiar with the syntax, I can't really explain it in a short 1-minute video, but essentially we're pulling out the inner type of the validator using Typescript's incredibly handy infer keyword as well as a type conditional. If you'd like to learn more, I would just Google the Typescript infer keyword. There's tons of great long-form videos on it. Now we can continue on and make compound types for nullables, optionals, and most importantly, objects. The optional and nullable make sense and are relatively straightforward, but the object type is a little confusing. This is another spot where we use some weird type level programming and use a mapped type. The full code for all of this will be on my website if you'd like to study it in more detail. We can now return to the other file and rewrite our create user, but as a runtime constant using our validation. We can then infer it using the infer keyword we made earlier and use that for validation. Now we can go back to our original route and use our schema to validate the body. To be honest, we would need better error handling, and it's really better to use a pre-made library like Zod or Typox rather than bring our own. These provide that deeper error handling and the ability to validate correct email and password formats, which we don't handle. Regardless, understanding at least the basics of how they are implemented can bring us ever closer to the widgetry of more advanced developers.